Sharron, what did you make of these comments from Tom Daley?
Well, I mean, as you've been saying all night, everyone is entitled to their comments. Tom made these comments at Britain's LGBT Awards, so it's kind of obvious what he was going to say. He has a very strong activist husband who also has very strong opinions from this point of view. What I would say is that Tom is male, and this does not affect him in the slightest. It doesn't affect males in the slightest. Transgender men, biological females who actually happen to carry on competing in the women's category because they wouldn't stand on earthlies competing in the men's category, don't cause any risk to men's sport whatsoever. So I think, to be honest with you, we have to listen to the women, and FINA were the first governing body, would you believe, since 2015 to actually poll their female athletes and to listen to their female athletes and actually to listen to their coaches. 22,000 coaches, World Coaches Association from around the world petitioned FINA and said, we want you to protect the female category. So well done, Nadine. I'm hoping very much now that the other sports will follow. And, it's always been a ludicrous state of affair that males were allowed to have fair sport and women were expected just to shove over.
I know, because you can't imagine that Tom's female diving teammates in Team GB would share his stance. Because, of course, if they were competing against a trans female who had gone through male puberty, it clearly would be unfair.
Yes, absolutely. And it's all about the puberty advantage that you have, the strength, the speed, and again, with diving, it's very apparent, particularly with springboard and things like that. So, and the bigger and the more explosive the event, something like weightlifting at the Olympic Games, 30%, absolutely huge difference. Middle distance running, about 10%. And even if you can mitigate a little bit, it's still a huge percentage when people win gold medals by, parts of a hundredth of a second, the length of your fingernail. So it really isn't very fair. And I'm so pleased that we seem to be moving in the right direction at last.
I think we are, Sharron, absolutely. What's interesting about Nadine Dorries' approach is that she wants to try and do this by consensus. I mean, I interviewed her on this a few weeks ago, and she was opposed to the idea of legally doing something. But what happens, Sharron, if not all of the sporting bodies do agree to her stance?
Good question. I think actually once a precedent is set and all of the science has been done and all the human rights lawyers have been spoken to, FINA have done their homework. They spend a very long time talking to lots of different people to make sure that their policy was bulletproof. And I think what the female athletes in the sports that don't decide to prioritise fairness need to do is to take them to court. Because at the end of the day, this is a form of sex discrimination. We can't change our biological sex. And the whole reason why we have a women's category is to give an opportunity to females to win medals. That's why we have categories at all, to give people across society the biggest opportunity to be able to be successful in sport, whether that's Paralympics, whether that's weight categories in boxing, whether that's age categories. That's the whole point of categories in sport. So I think if we don't get this opportunity, it is a form of sexual discrimination. So we need to do something very serious about it. But I think we will see that, there'll be a lot of pressure on those governing bodies to follow suit and to actually prioritise fairness over inclusion. It's very wrong to say that trans athletes are not included, though. One of the actual clauses that FINA has brought out is to do a workshop. It's a working group over the next 6 months about whether we create a third classification and what that would look like, and to get all the stakeholders involved and get everybody's opinions and ideas going forward. So, this isn't about excluding anybody. And you've got to remember, if you're a transgender woman, if you're a male person, you've never been excluded from sport. You're only being excluded from the women's category. You're not being excluded from sport.
Well, no, they can continue to compete in the men's category. And I've seen that in team sports, Sharron. I'm a big supporter of women's netball, and I have seen men's netball team where they have trans women as part of the team because it's the only way for it to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both at the NC2As earlier this year when we saw Lia Thomas win the women's events and at the Olympic Games last year in Tokyo, transgender men, biological females, still opted to identify as the opposite sex, but to carry on and compete in the sex that they were born. So they still carry on and competed in the women's classification. So maybe the inclusion needs to be for actual males to be more inclusive of people that are, non-gender conforming in the way that they want to identify. Maybe this is where the word inclusion needs to be sort of exaggerated and used properly. But no one has ever been excluded. I had a friend send me a text the other day, which really actually broke my heart. And she was talking about, at this time of year, primary schools doing sports days. And she said in her daughter's sports day, the school decided that they were going to run mixed sex races so that nobody was offended. And, not one little girl won a race on that day at their sports day.
Shame on that school.
I'm sorry, but that breaks my heart. Shame on that school, honestly. Shame on that school.
Because
not the only ones.
You are doing is discouraging young girls to take part in sport at all. They're just going to think, Absolutely. Why bother? I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous. Even if one little girl comes back, and she's disheartened and doesn't want to be involved in sport again, that's one too many, isn't it? And it would be completely understandable that that is how they would feel. No, they're definitely not the only ones. Sharron Davies, thank you for continuing to shine a spotlight on this very important issue. We'll keep in touch with you about it, of course.